Hi, I'm Rex Sikes, and this is Inside the Film Business. We're here with Nadine Jolson. Nadine is a publicist in Los Angeles. She has her own business, and she's going to tell you a bit about that in just a second. I'm also with students at the University of Wisconsin. They're behind me. Class, if you, it's okay to videotape you, please put your hands up. This is your video release. So they actually U-shape around me, and they're all film majors, with the exception of one who is not yet here this morning. And this is Nadine. So Nadine, tell us about your business and a little bit about what you do, and then you and I will discuss, and they'll have questions and things like that.
Okay. Well, we're an independent PR firm, as you mentioned, based in Los Angeles, and we our job is to champion filmmakers and help them through the process. So we work with different producers and directors, and from the time that they start their scripts and they start thinking about casting many times, and they're like, well, what about this actor or this actress? Would this be good for marketing? Would this be good for PR? Would this work internationally, and so forth? And what about social media? I mean, these are all the questions that come up and that everybody has to take into consideration in the very early days. Once the casting is done, we make the first announcements to the trade publications to put the project on the plate, so everybody in the world gets to know about it. And then when we're lucky, we get to go on set and film behind the scenes, and then we organize all the images and get them ready for marketing and PR. And we help our filmmakers get into film festivals or do distribution deals, or have grand opening, red carpets, all the above. So, and through DVD distribution and online sales, everything. We stay with some of our projects from the very beginning all the way through the very, very end, and like a couple of years.
So, how important is it to have a publicist to first as an artist, or as whether you're an actor or a writer or a director, but somebody who wants to build a career? You understand the nature of my question? What?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, if we always say you shouldn't talk about yourself, you should always have someone else talking about you, because you don't want to go and write letters to people and say, hey, I'm a cool new director coming up, or, I just completed this small film, on a tiny budget, or, I want to be a movie star. Like, you don't want to say those things. But if I'm out there and I'm saying, hey, I know this great new actor, or I've got this director who, is making shorts right now, but he's hoping to get funded to have them into full features, then it gives you more credibility and it gives you more esteem in the business. And the business is, everybody who is in the industry that all supports your work. So it's not just media, but everybody needs to get to know you.
So they need to get to know you.
Does that answer what you're asking?
Yes, I think so. How about you guys? But they not only have to get to know you, but they have to get to know your body of work or your project. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's when I say you, I mean you and your work, because you are an artist, no matter what, whether you're a cameraman or a director or a producer or a writer, you're still always presenting your work, and they need to get to know you. And there's so many vehicles to do that this day, especially with social media, that you can start on day one.
So what these fine people are in film school right now, but that they're working on projects and they're creating a body of work, and they ultimately will have a professional body of work that they'll want to end up promoting. How should they think in terms of where I am today versus where I want to be a few years from now? Is there something they can do in the meantime?
Yeah. Build, again, back to the social media, because that's the biggest thing we've got going for us right now, is start to build your fan base. Start to engage people into what you're doing and let them know, oh, I'm shooting this film. Oh, I just wrote this film. Oh, here I am behind the scenes. Oh, here's a scene of us doing crazy makeup on one of the actors. Or here's a scene of us picking a location. What do you guys think of these different locations? Engage your audience and start building up a social media following. And those are the same people that will support you as the film gets done. You build up the esteem with them. You build up also the excitement with them. So when your film is ready, you could have 10,000 followers all ready for a film. And those are good numbers to start with.
Very, very cool. Any particular questions about your work or yourself or about publicity in general that you would want to know? Because ultimately, this is a huge part of not only from your inception, but especially through your distribution process. So, kind of thoughts or comments or questions might you have? Yes.
Hey, my name is Zach. Do the prices you charge differ between, like, say, if somebody comes to you wanting to be an actor versus somebody comes to you with a movie they've created or like a screenplay? Like, are there different rates that you charge for what these individuals want, or is it how does it?
Basically, yes. I mean, we always are considerate to the budget of the project, and if we're working on an average film for us is, let's say, around $10 million. And so I pretty much know what the budget is going to be for us overall throughout the year. But we have a lot of times people come to us with a project that's already been completed and they just are doing a DVD release, or they're doing a buyer screening. And then, we're just charging like an a la carte menu for something like that. We're very sensitive to independent filmmakers and know that they can't pay studio prices. So we don't charge them. And some people, we stay on an ongoing retainer, and sometimes we do like a one-offs, like we'll charge this for a press release and that for a grand opening and another price to go on set and so on. So it's always cost-effective for the filmmaker. It's never overwhelming.
Very, very cool. And hopefully the first part of this program has been recording sound, be recording your sound, but it may not have been recording our sound, so that's fine. I mean, essentially we've asked, why does somebody need, a publicist, and about what you do, and if you're in school, should you be, what can you do in the meantime between now and you graduate, I think are pretty much what we asked, and then Zach asked the question about different rates and projects and things like that. So cool. All right, anyone else? Right now, yes?
Yes, my name's Richard. I was wondering about kind of more, geographically, where do your clients come from? Are many of them out of LA, or do they all have to be, based out of LA? Does that make sense?
Could you hear him?
I'm so sorry, Richard, but first part of that garbled. Would you repeat the question?
I was wondering how many of your clients are out of LA? Like, would it be possible for any of your clients to not be based out of Los Angeles?
Oh yeah, I've got clients I've never met. Yeah, I have a client that I'm working for on a foreign film right now. He's in Aberdeen, Scotland. I had another film from Kyrgyzstan. I had a filmmaker that was in Florida. Never met him. I have filmmakers and people in New York that I do see occasionally, but 99% of the work I do, they're in New York and I'm here. Yeah, it doesn't matter so much. These days with the internet and Skype and, all the tools that we have, doesn't really matter where you're based.
Well, we met originally over a client from somewhere else, as I recall.
Yeah.
So, and neither of us knew
in
this.
Cambodia.
We're in Cambodia, and neither of us knew this person. Yeah, right. I mean,
Yeah.
is that correct?
Yeah. There's, I mean, I literally, people hire me all the time and then I meet them like 6 months later.
At an event or premiere?
Yeah, exactly. Like the night of their premiere. Hi. Oh, I had another client from Italy recently. That's right. I just remember there's another one. We did a big screening for his film, a buyer screening for his film at the DGA, which is the Directors Guild. It's pretty, one of the higher end theaters here in Los Angeles that's very coveted to have events at because it's very prestigious. And so we threw this big party and we had a caterer do this beautiful Italian spread, and I didn't meet the guy until 5 minutes before the whole thing started. I mean, obviously we connected over the internet, email, and phone, but actually no, I don't think we ever even talked on the phone. We were just email. And I worked on the project for like 2 months.
So for actors, I mean, as an actor, I get told in the industry, you know, stay in touch with casting directors, stay in touch with producers, directors. You know, there's postcards and different ways to stay in touch, or thank you cards or notes that are snail mailed as opposed to emailed. What advice do you have for filmmakers and actors who they might not yet utilize your services, and they should, but in the interim, what kinds of things can they be doing, and then what kinds of things, like campaign wise, could you? I like the idea that you said originally. Nobody wants to blow their own horn.
Yeah.
I prefer if somebody else says, "Hey, you know what this guy is doing? Far superior."
Yeah, far superior. Yeah. Well, one of the things that we always suggest is, as corny as it sounds, is networking. Get out of your house, get out of the film studio, get out of the classroom, wherever it is that you are, and meet and greet and connect with other filmmakers, because you never know, that might be your next crew, that might be your next associate, that might be your next partner, that might be your next financier. And the film business is all built on relationships. I mean, we can have the best script and the best actor, but if we call up this studio or that distributor or whatever it is to talk about the deal, they're taking the phone call because I have a relationship with them. It doesn't really matter what I'm bringing to the table. Ultimately, it does to make the sale, but to get the phone calls, to make the deals, it's all relationships. So I would sincerely tell people to build them now, keep in contact with people. I get cards from actors and so forth, you know, the old-fashioned thank you cards in the mail, which are so sweet. I don't mind if it comes over the internet, you know, a nice e-card, but it's all those little tiny things are very valuable. People remember them, they do. But you have to have good product too. I mean, you can't just be all flash and not have any substance. You need the substance. Like, you know, as PR people, we sell the sizzle, but you got to have the steak.
That's an excellent point. So, okay, questions? Yes, sir.
I was wondering, my name is Chase. I was wondering what kind of jobs you had to work to get yourself to this point, if you had any other positions in the movie industry.
Yes, actually. I didn't start out in the film industry at all. I actually didn't want to be in the film industry. I come from a family in the film business, and I wanted to do fashion and beauty and retail. I actually started off working in retail when I was like 12, and thought I was going to like own a retail boutique kind of thing. Was where I thought I was going as a young girl. But I got into art school, and I started doing commercial art and creative arts and graphic design, and I just loved it. And I went pretty much quickly from a graphic designer to a creative art director, and I loved it. We were producing campaigns, ad campaigns, commercial campaigns for a lot of retail and fashion clients like Ross, Dress for Less, and Il Fornaio restaurants. And this was in San Francisco. But I absolutely loved doing creative arts. And that has helped me so much in what I do, because my work in the advertising business like that for 7 years in San Francisco gave me a really good base for understanding the word branding. and what branding means and what a person is, who they want to be, and how they present themselves to the world. And that's another thing that we always say is really important for our clients is when I interview them, like, what do you want? What do you have to contribute? And how do you want to be perceived? Because our job as PR, and I call it PR and marketing, or what I call image marketing, is, image PR, is packaging you in the way to present to the world so they understand what it is that you're offering. So all of that, my background in advertising was fantastic help. And I call it visual PR too, because we're helping put together your press kits. We're helping you, or consulting and or designing sometimes your art campaigns for your movies. We're consulting and or designing sometimes your websites for your films, helping build with your social media, making sure all your images and your graphics and your brand message, whatever it is consistent. It's a big mistake a lot of people make. And for young filmmakers like yourselves, I would say, especially Chase and the other gentlemen or ladies in the room, is to decide what you want to be. Like, do you want to be a small independent filmmaker who's making these real cool art films that, have a message? Or do you want to be part of a big studio and you really want to run Warner Brothers one day? It's like, kind of start thinking who you want to be and where you want to be on that scale. And then make sure that all your presentations to the universe all build on that branding, all build on who you need to be and who you want to be. Like, who do you want to be and when you grow up, kind of I laugh about, and start presenting yourself that way.
I think that's a really great point that you make. I mean, it's that consistent image, that consistent message, that consistent brand that you are, that people recognize. I mean, that's why major corporations spend billions of dollars developing brand awareness and their logos and their image. So for a filmmaker or actor to do that and be consistent is very valuable advice. And to have someone, mentors and people that they work with that can help shape that based on asking questions like, who do you want to be, or what do you want to put forth, or what is your career track, is a very valuable assistant. And so,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, everybody knows what kind of film Steven Spielberg makes. Everybody knows, Martin Scorsese, what kind of film he makes. When you turn on the TV show Empire, you know what you're going to get. It's, those are all clear brands. And, it's just need to decide where you want to be, what's important to you, and make sure that you're always stressing that. And again, back to the social media, that you're connecting with others that are, that you, with similar likes, interests, kind of backgrounds or images, branding that you like, and start connecting with them too, because I always say, you don't buy a Toyota by watching one Toyota commercial. And I know because I used to produce the commercials for Toyota. And, the human brain takes 3 to 10 times to see a message before it even will register that there's a message coming to it. So, and you have 8 seconds to capture that brand, that image, that thought, before the brain will move on to something else. It used to be, we used to have, when I started out in the ad business, 30 seconds to capture their attention. Now, because of, everything moves so fast and we're just in a different universe now, you really have 8 seconds. So everything that you do, that you put forward about who you are, your business, your project, needs to be spot on and clean, clear message.
Yeah, that's excellent. We've trained people to be ADD, I mean, the attention spans have gotten so short that the amount of time we have to capture them. But the other thing that's true, and that you emphasize, is the notion of repetition in your message, in your brand, in getting it out there, that consistent, repeated, who you are. And you mentioned great people, whether it's Scorsese or Spielberg. I mean, it does, or Christopher Nolan. I mean, anybody you can go up against almost these filmmakers and go, I know exactly what I'm getting with it, or who Tom Hanks is, for example, or Ron Howard. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm picking men right now, but I mean, what is the difference between advertising and PR or marketing and PR? What do people need to know that there's a difference?
That's a really good question. So, because I get asked that all the time from my clients because they don't really understand. So, this is the way I particularly phrase it. Everything to me is marketing. So, marketing means you're reaching your market and you're letting you know to people that your product is for sale. Now, for sale means in the theaters. For sale means buy my script. For sale means come to my screening. So that's what we mean by for sale. So everything is really under the umbrella of marketing. Now, advertising is paid advertising, means that you are paying for space in a particular publication, media outlet, television channel, whatever that may be, radio show. PR is not paid. PR is you're trying to get on that same magazine, TV show, or radio program to have them talk about you, your project, your celebrity, whatever it is, and there's no fees involved. So I always say to people, and this was one of my little selling points, particularly years ago, is if you were to buy a full page ad in say Time magazine, this is, now we very rarely have print magazines anymore, but to buy a full page ad in Time magazine, the going rate was about $72,000. Now you can hire a PR firm and pay them $3,000 a month, which is an average, for a small PR firm, and that's $36,000. And they will, God willing, they'll get you an article in Time magazine, and so that's half the price. And people will respond 75% more to an article in Time magazine than an advertisement. So I always say PR really, really pays off. Now, if you're doing a campaign like we did, we did an Oscar campaign for a film last year, and we're doing another campaign, a Golden Globe campaign for another film this year. We're working on, and it's real important that you do all the above. You have to be in the paid advertisements because you need to be seen on a consistent, constant, and regular basis in these publications, these particular trade publications like Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Deadline, Screen International, etc., IndieWire. Those are the top ones, and the Wrap. Those are like the top ones you want to be in all the time. And you're not going to get an article every other week. You're going to get one article. So for the week before the article, you should have an ad, and the week after the article, you should have an ad, because that's how, again, you're building your brand. Now, not everybody can afford ads, and ads are good when you're doing a major campaign. If you're just an independent filmmaker and you're working on getting into film festivals and so forth, you don't need to do ad campaigns too. But there's times when, like in social media land, I'll do paid Facebook ads to build your fan base or to boost an article where I'll throw in an extra $150 or whatever. It's real cheap advertising in social media land. And you can take an article, post it, and then boost it, and you can get another like 20,000 hits on it. So I'm all for paying for advertising when it's appropriate, but do your best to get people talking about you without paying for it. People pay much more attention.
Good point. Good point. Excellent points. What about, since you mentioned it, festivals, the value of, because you want people to get into your screening, so a PR person for festivals.
Right. Well, let's say you're doing Sundance. At Sundance, there's, 300 films screening, for example. Now, you need to be noticed, and unless you've got Tom Hanks or Steven Spielberg directed your film, you're probably not going to get the esteem and the people are going to pay attention to you in that large a field. So I highly recommend you have a PR company working with you, because what you need to do is they're going to write releases, and all the media is going to be sent a list of all the films that are screening. But that reporter isn't going to write about 400 films. What they're going to ask is, give me the top 6. Give me 4 to talk about. Give me 12 that I want to feature in my article. And that reporter is making that decision on which those 12 are. And they're not necessarily based on, I know that person, or let me talk about that one because it's got some major star in it. They're talking about that person because maybe a publicist called them or sent them an email and said, hey, my film just got announced, it's in Sundance. I'd love if you can, I wanted to get it on your radar. So any articles and coverage that you may be doing, please think of my film. And I've gotten great coverage for people just like that. Just get me on your radar. When you're working smaller festivals, it's also very important because the smaller festivals don't have generally a lot of media coverage. And so you want to be a bigger fish in that smaller pond, and you want to make sure that the local people who are covering the film festival are aware of your film. Don't rely on the film festival to do it for you, because the film festival's job is to get people to know about the festival, not about any particular film. So if you have a film in a festival, you need an individual representative to talk to the media directly on your behalf. Otherwise, you may get completely lost in the shuffle.
Well, I think everything that you've said is stuff that all of us should be putting into practice, and we're working with people to do that. And there's another aspect of that. These students happen to be here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Some want to travel ultimately later on, but this is a small market,
Yeah.
and it would benefit any one of them to start getting local press about their projects and become a big fish in the small pond. Because the articles that they write about them today and their projects may be the articles that potential investors read about, or that make the internet and filmmakers in Los Angeles or around the world read about. So there's never a time not to be promoting yourself.
Correct. One of the things is, let's say you're, I don't know what the local name of your newspaper is, the Wisconsin Herald, so find out who writes about film at the Wisconsin Herald, and that's going to be Joe Smith. And get to know Joe Smith. Don't get to know the Wisconsin Herald, because that's good, but Joe Smith is the human who's writing the story. So call up Joe Smith and say, hey, I'm an independent filmmaker. I'm in film school. I'm trying to build a presence in the world. Can I take you to lunch? Can I meet you for coffee? Can I buy you a donut? Whatever it is. And meet that person, because one of the things that people don't understand is that reporters are people. Like, everybody thinks, oh, I just want an article in the LA Times. But unless you have a relationship with, Anita Bush at the LA Times, and you have people that you can call, it doesn't do you any good. And some of the people that I work with at the different publications, I've known for 30 years. And we're friends, or I've taken them to coffee, or I send them, something I saw on the internet the other day that I know they may like. I mean, I have a relationship with these people, and there's never a bad time to start building these relationships. And literally, most reporters love being taken out for coffee and cocktails, whatever, because a lot of people don't treat them that nicely. So be kind to them and show them that you care about them. Ask them, what are their interests? What do they look for in a story? Do they ever cover young filmmakers? How can I help, become better known to your publication? How can I get better known to you? They're generally willing to answer those questions.
Fantastic. Any other questions or comments immediately?
Hi, my name is Thunder. I'm just going off of that. What would you say is the best way to approach, said person?
Well, generally email. Most people are very email conscious and steady. You can follow them on Twitter, follow them on Instagram. Look up for everybody that you want to find out who's writing what. Start reading what they write. It's real important for you to become familiar with what they write, who they write about, how they write. So start following them through social media is huge. Sometimes you can tweet at somebody and hey, it's John Smith. I really, love the way you write. Would love to get together for coffee. Here's my email. It's like you can reach out through a lot of different ways. But generally email is a gentle way. And I usually will email 3 times to somebody before if I don't get a response before I kind of on to the next one. And maybe it's not right today. Maybe it's, maybe he's like, you know what, I'm a little busy right now, not a good time. But don't give up, ever. Don't ever give up. Call him up and say, oh, I just learned this new thing in class today. Or, I have some questions about, what it's like. I learned that I should be building relationships with reporters. Help me. How can I build a relationship with you?
I like that. I got a question. I got one comment I want to make, and then be sure to ask you a question. I went to Sherwood Oaks Experimental College, and I happened to have a class in producing with a casting director who I knew through an acting workshop, who had become a friend of mine, and I had always wanted her to hire me for jobs as an actor, and her husband was a writer. And she said, I'm going to introduce you to my husband. And I said, that's so great. Now, she and her husband shared different last names, as professional people often do. And when I heard his name, I thought he was somebody else. So he called me up one day and said, Rex, I'm so-and-so. And I said, I love Chinatown. And he went, I didn't write Chinatown. And I went, well, what? And I had just let my foot fall right out of my mouth. I had not researched him. I didn't know who he was when, and I felt totally and completely stupid. Fortunately, he was gracious, but to follow up with what you're saying, always research the people that you want to connect with, so that you know what they've done, and so you don't make a faux pas intentionally or otherwise.
Yeah, connect with them. If you want them to be connecting with you, connect with them first.
Excellent. Yes, sir.
Hi, so this is Richard again. You've given some good networking advice here. You kind of seem like an expert on it. Is there anything else, any other advice for networking that you'd like to give us?
Yeah, go get business cards. Nice business cards made, and always have them on you. I can't tell you how many times I've been at events, and I was literally at a jewelry sale. I have a client who designed custom jewelry, and so she has her annual Christmas sale. And I'm sitting there talking to this gentleman who also produces events, and then this other woman sat down on the couch with us afterwards, who is producing some small projects. I mean, you never know when you're going to meet somebody that could be a business connection for you. And I whipped out my business cards in 10 seconds, and I'm like, here. And they both were like, oh, sorry, I don't have cards on me. And I just thought, wow, you should always have cards on you. Always. Always have cards on you. The other thing is, and it's kind of corny, but dress for success. I know it sounds obnoxious coming from a female, but it's like dress for the job you want to have. So in a creative art world, Steven Spielberg runs around in jeans and t-shirts and so forth. But, if he's trying to present, when he's up with the studios and he's presenting, not walking in jeans, he's probably got at least a sport coat and a nice shirt on. You always want to look your best. You want to present that you have confidence and you have power and you're somebody to listen to. And your attire and how everything that you use to present yourself, from your business card to your attire to how you make eye contact with the person you're talking with, all matters. It's all subtle, but it all matters. And you don't have, you can still wear jeans. You can wear, like I see, you guys are wearing like full clothes. You can. It's not that you have to suddenly be in business suits and ties. It's just you want to make sure that you look like you dressed professionally for the day, whether it's still being jeans and a sweatshirt, but you look clean, your clothing's pressed, there's no stains on it, things like that. They're little tiny things that the human eye picks up, and, people are very judgmental. You'd be surprised, not be so surprised, but, like, I always say, put your best foot forward at all times.
Well, I don't know what the younger generations actually think nowadays. I can pretend to try and get into the heads, but ultimately, I would say dress like you're going on a first date.
Yeah, there you go.
In other words, you're trying to present yourself, and nobody wants. Think of it this way: if you were dressed up and you were really nice in your best casual clothes, and then the person who you're going to date shows up and they're like in coffee stained sweatpants and, you know, clothes that don't fit and mismatched colors, you go, what the heck, you know, what have I gotten myself into? So if you're going for jobs and you're trying to impress people who are working in a professional world, it makes sense to not be the slovenly, I'm the artist, filmmaker, you know, and I've got the torn off ratty jeans and I've got my little baseball cap and I do the whole, you know, brooding filmmaker thing. Other questions?
Well, I just want to add
Yes.
one small thing to that, to the business card is, because you had brought it up before about postcards for actors and so forth. Whatever you've got project-wise, if you have a project and you've got art, like you've got a film poster or some stills from the film, anything, and you want to print it on postcards, I mean, you can go to your local Kinko's or wherever and print up like 25 of them, 50 of them, and it just says, oh, projects in the works, and here's some graphics, and you have a logo or, you know, other visual branding. Carry those around with you too, because again, we're a very visual society, and anything you can do to get in those brain cells of people to remember you, to acknowledge you, to value you. I have my picture actually on my business card. I'll show you here. Let's see. That's my business card. Is it am I too far away? Is that can you see it?
Yeah, no, we can see it. It's
Yeah.
vertically. It's a full shot of you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my business card. And you know, some people thought I was really corny doing this business card up front, and I kind of hesitated at first, but because I'm not an actress, and you know, actors always put their picture on their cards, but and then I just have all like my information on the back. The people always look at this card and go, "Wow, what a great card," and they remember it. And it's printed on really quality stock, and it's I mean, I personally have round edges on mine just to again make it stand out, but. People remember my card. They always remember my card, and they put my face and my image with it because there's, you know, thousands of publicists, especially in Los Angeles, and I want to be remembered. I want to be noticed. You know, I want people to know who I am. And, you know, there's so many subtle little things that you can do like that people will remember you in a good way.
That's very, very cool. Any other questions or any? Because I have one. In terms of using social media, like, how do you best use Facebook when they thwart your efforts today, or how do you best use Twitter or Instagram is one I've never figured out. Everybody says, oh, now Instagram is the big thing, you know, or Reddit or Tumblr. I mean, there's all sorts of different outlets that you see, or now there's, I mean, just a ton of them that
Keep it simple. Twitter, Facebook is all you need. Instagram is a very visual medium. So Twitter's about a conversation. Twitter is, you know, 140 character mini little conversation that you would have at a cocktail party or an event. Facebook is about, it's kind of like, oh, here's who I am and what I have going on, and I want to always, you know, keep people abreast of what's happening in my world. Instagram is pure visual. So if you are a cinematographer, a photographer, a director, Instagram is really good because you're always going to be putting up images from, you know, behind the scenes, or images of things that you're working on, or images of things that you like. But don't worry about all the others. You don't need all the others unless you're doing a major campaign. Keep focused. I always say pick one or two of the top ones. Build a good following there, and then you can expand out as you go along. It depends on what social media you use. I mean, obviously there's things like Periscope that you can follow, which is a new fun thing. There's Vine. I mean, there's a couple of others that you can follow along, but you don't need to necessarily have a presence of your own. Going back to a statement I made earlier, you want to build relationships. Find out who people are. Find filmmakers. Find media outlets. Find reporters that you want to get to know, and follow their social media channels. So once you start following theirs, it's real important that you start interacting with your own. But you don't need to have 25 different social media channels. You can literally pick just one or two. Just be really good at one or two and be very active.
is there, I mean, you mentioned earlier the boosting pay for ads and things like that. But I mean, in general, it used to be you had quite an extended reach in Facebook, and then they've thwarted that by making it so that you have to actually make sure to go and click get notifications from people in order to be notified of things. And so if you or I on Facebook and I'm not getting your notifications, I don't know that you're there.
I mean, yes and no. Again, it's a matter of who you follow. You know, a lot of people think that social media is about talking about yourself. It's more about learning about other people. You know, I start my day around 6:30 in the morning every day, and I literally read social media and regular media content for about an hour before I even start my day. And I want to read who's writing what, who's posting what, who's saying what, who put up that image. So I follow along with the people that I'm interested in, and particularly the subjects. Like if I have a client in a particular subject or something happening with them, I'm always following what's happening around them. So it's as much as following what other people have. So I would go to all the people who you want to hear about. Make sure you mark their little get notifications. I'm not too worried about that. I don't lose much information. I'm pretty abreast of everything. Twitter's pretty amazing. I mean, literally, you can go follow, 100 cool people, and you'll pick a couple good media outlets, for the things that resonate with you, and you'll know what's happening in the world. Because, I mean, literally, Variety, Hollywood Reporter, the top 5 trade publications, literally every half an hour, pretty much on Twitter, tells you what's happening. So you can follow, and in Variety, for example, there's, you can follow Variety as a whole. You can follow, like, Dave McNary, who's one of the writers that I adore. Follow Dave. He writes about film. He writes a lot about independent film. He's done a ton of stories for us. He just did a full front page story recently for another client of mine. And I follow what Dave writes. I care. Dave takes my phone calls when I call him, when I email him. He responds, like, literally within a minute or two, which is amazing, but I have a relationship with him. But I read what's happening, learn more. Knowledge is everything, as corny as that sounds. The more you know, the more respected you'll be if you have a conversation with people. You take a Dave McNary type out to lunch one day, you can actually have an intelligent conversation with them.
Yeah, that's again a great point. In that there are a number of people who make connections. I think we just had another guest who said this recently, but the number of times that people will talk with the director, say about vintage films or obscure films, and it's a passion that this particular director has. If you can talk the language of that director, you have an almost instant in if you can get access to the person. So it pays to pay attention to learn what people are into, learn to what they're doing, and to be able to speak their language. And the more you know about the business that you're in, the more you're able to do that. If I were to sum up, and we're not at that point yet, but if I were just to kind of sum up what I've heard today, a part of what you said, is recognition and repetition are really important, and relationships. I mean, if I had to bring it into 3 R's, it would be, get yourself recognized and recognize those people who are out there and develop a relationship with them, and make sure that you repeatedly expose yourself to the media in a positive way.
Yeah.
Right? But I mean, get yourself out there in a positive way, because it takes time for people to develop an awareness of you in the same way it takes you time to develop an awareness of whatever it is that you're learning. And if knowledge is important, then you have to constantly repeat that learning over and over and over again until you actually own it. One time reading it isn't going. This is what we've talked about from the beginning of the classroom. So very, very powerful.
Filmmakers. I'm sorry. Finish.
No, go. I was just going to say just three.
If you guys are filmmakers, you should be reading the trades every single day. You should know what Variety is saying, what the Hollywood Reporter is saying, the Wrap. I mean, you can pick all the above or just pick one of them and follow them. I mean, you don't have to buy a subscription. You can literally just follow them on Facebook, Twitter, They have email blasts you can sign up for that send you like once a day blasts. But literally, or you can just go online every morning, thr.com or variety.com, and literally read what they're saying, because there's a film section. Read what's happening. Read what people are doing. Learn about the business. Because these are people talking about the business, what's happening, who's making what deal, how people are putting financing deals together, what's happening at this film festival, how that film festival chooses its jury. All of these things are all really valid information for you guys to learn as young filmmakers. It's really, really, really going to help you down the road.
If I had to remember the number one complaint or criticism I hear about young filmmakers, I don't mean age-wise, I mean people in the film business today versus 30 years ago or 40 years ago, it's because of the availability of the media, the technology, the fact that anybody can make a movie now on their phone or any way, that they haven't developed an appreciation for, one, the history, or two, the current state of business affairs. That I could go off and shoot a movie, but I don't know what's going on in the world that I want to enter. And that is the number one thing that I hear from professionals when they talk about, I have met young filmmakers or people today, they just don't seem to have this appreciation. So if that is true, and I'm not saying it is, I'm just repeating what I seem to hear a lot of, if that is true, again, it would benefit any filmmaker to try and demonstrate that you're not one of those people and that you have a knowledge and a background and you can appreciate the history. Somebody mentioned It's a Wonderful Life yesterday. I was paying attention to somebody, and I've had people who go, "What's that?" And
Well, that's true.
You know,
That happened.
no, of course it is, but I mean, there's a certain point at which, it's like the number one holiday film for the last 60 years, but.
Right, but if you're like, well, I've never seen Martin Scorsese, like going back to the people that I talk about.
Well, of course.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've ever seen a Martin Scorsese film, or I'm not really sure I, know so much about Steven Spielberg's work, or or even somebody like Steve McQueen, from who directed 12 Years a Slave, that won an Oscar not last year, the year before. It's,
Right.
It's just as important to know who's who right now.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Your
Yeah.
your history and the current state of affairs, and that's why the value of reading the Reporter or the Wrap or the IndieWire or any of those is to be able to talk with the people who are in the business today, and the people who are many of the people who are in the business today not only appreciate what goes on currently, but they have a love for where they came from.
Sure.
And so
I mean, my great uncle made the very first talkie ever, and so I come from a long history.
I was wondering when you were going to get to that.
One of the most famous actors in the film business. Oh, you didn't know?
No, I knew. I was like, are we ever gonna address that? You could have had a very different logo too. You could have had your uncle's face.
Well, yeah, I actually did contemplate changing my logo at one point, but I've had the same logo for a lot of years, and again, consistency is really important.
Right.
But
do you know who we're talking about?
yeah, Al Jolson.
Do you know who Al Jolson was?
Show of hands. Tell me who in that room knows who Al Jolson is.
Anyone?
Anyone?
No, not a single one.
All right, no big.
He
So,
made the
I'm
first
gonna ask
talking
Paul-
film.
No, don't just Google it.
Okay.
I want to Google it. That's what we love Google for.
Hmm?
He was a pioneer in the film industry, and he actually starred in the very first talkie movie, and he was very famous in his years, from like the 1920s through 1950 when he died. So it's way, way, way before your time. But these are the people that really formed the film industry, and those relatives and those decisions that were made way back then are still in place at some of the big studios today. So, if you want to do a little history for fun, check it out. It's just good to know, a few major players in the game here and there. But it's just like, get to know who's hot right now. I have TV actors who are part of my clientele, and I watch their shows because I want to know what's happening with the characters. I need to know because people are going to ask me, "Oh, what's happening this season?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, I don't watch a show. Oh, that would look pretty lame."
True.
You know, and I don't know who the guest actor was because I don't watch the show the guest actor's from. Now, I may not watch the show that the guest actor's from, but I know who the person is. So I read, you know, I keep in touch with Entertainment Weekly and another publication that I read, and with E! Entertainment. And, you know, the good thing about THR, the Hollywood Reporter, kind of does a little bit of the consumer also, so I can keep track of who's happening with what, so that I know when I'm doing a red carpet or I'm at an event and they go, "Oh, who's that actress?" I don't kind of go, I don't know, she's on some new show. You know, I know what that new show is, and I most of the time can say the actor's name.
Well, I know that from friends of mine, casting directors and directors and producers and people who work in television, one of the things that they will always advise actors to do is watch every show that comes on every season, at least 2 episodes, so that you're familiar with what's there, so that if you're called in for an interview, you know what the show is, you know who the main characters are. I read an article the other day from someone who said, "I take notes. I have a notebook, and I take all these notes about who the lead characters are and what the show is about, what the plot line is, and who directed." And I was like, wow, that's labor intense. But this woman was saying, this is what I do because I'm a professional actress, and I know that someday I'm going to go out and I'm going to meet some of these people. And then she would take notes about who she met, what she wore, because when you get a call back, they're calling you back for what you came in as, not to be something else usually. So, you know, oftentimes the casting director will say, dress the same as you came in on your original. But also, if you're directing television, you need to know what the show is, you need to know what the art direction is like, you need to know what the storylines are, you need to know who the cast is, and how you would fit as a rotating director into that cycle. So you've got to get up on what's going on around you, and not just be walking around with blinders and only doing what your interests are. This is an industry, and you don't know what point at which you'll enter, or what will be your breakthrough relationship that you have with someone. So,
I have a good one. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go. This is.
I have a good one for your students. I'm going to ask you guys a question now. So let me start with, I think it was Thunder. So Thunder, what was the last movie you saw?
Last movie I saw was over Thanksgiving break.
That's too long for you to answer.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't remember what it was. I'm also running on like.
I didn't hear.
He doesn't remember what it was. It was Thanksgiving break. It was a long time ago last week.
Okay, so and that's not a good answer for a filmmaker. How about the gentleman next to you with the hat?
Last film I saw was Green Inferno.
Okay, who's in it?
No actors I can think of. It's
Okay.
Yeah.
Who directed it? Okay. Next, how about the gentleman to the left there in the blue shirt?
I saw Sicario,
Okay, who's in it?
Emily Blunt, and Josh Brolin,
Who directed it?
Denis Villeneuve, I believe.
Okay, and can you name another film that they directed?
They did Prisoners, Enemy.
Okay, that's the answer. See, he's up on knowledge. You guys are filmmakers. You better become fans of film. You know, because this isn't a solitary world that we live in, especially in the filmmaking business. It's a very tight, small knit industry. So you got to know these answers right off the bat like that. You know the film. You know who directed it. You know who you like. Was there a reason why you chose that film? That's a good conversation starter.
Oh, that's excellent. I'm glad you did that. It's also that you may get in as an intern, you may get in as a production assistant, you may come in as a grip or the part in the electrical department. I mean, you know how you get into the business, how you get in. And people will sit around and they'll talk about the last movie they worked on and who they worked with and what they've done. And the more you can converse with all of the crew, because believe me, the crew has worked a lot. Somebody said this the other day. Who was it? It was an actor. It might have been. I don't want to. I think it was. I was watching a series of interviews, and I don't remember which actor it was. But they said, I'm an actor. I can do 100 movies in my career, but a director can only do maybe 10 or 15. So really, when it comes down to who has the more experience, and maybe it was Dustin Hoffman, but somebody said, you know, it was the point that the directors, we all think that they're gods, but they do because they spend years on one movie. You know, so they do fewer things, but the actor can go from part to part to part to part to part if they're lucky. So they would have far more credits than a director will ever have, which I just thought was an interesting way of somehow saying I have more experience than most directors when that's not necessarily the case. But they do have more on-set experience or more, you know, experience with other casts and crew.
How many of you guys, I want to see a show of hands, knows what IMDb is?
Looks like everybody.
How many of you guys have the application on your smartphone?
Significantly fewer.
Okay, so everybody get it on your smartphone. Every time you watch a movie, every time you turn on a TV show, hop on IMDb and look at who's in the movie or who's in it and what else have they directed. It's a fabulous source of information, and it's easy breezy. I literally have it on my iPhone, and I'm at meetings, you know, cocktail parties, and I'll step aside and I'll look up somebody in 10 seconds or less, and they're working on that movie, or they just did that. Oh, I know that director, or I work with that person, or whatever. It's all good.
And then you step over and say hi.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the advantage of it.
I'm always looking people up.
You know, yeah. You know, I do too. I spend a lot of time on IMDb. It's amazing. I had a recent meeting, and you know, I sit there and I look up the producer, the director, the cast, who they've worked with, what they've done before, what their history is, if there's contact. I have IMDb Pro. I don't have IMDb Pro on my phone. I don't. Do they have it on the phone? I know I've got the app.
It's not actually well, they kind of do.
I've got the regular app.
So you have the Pro app, but it takes you to the actual site instead, and you still have to sadly log in every time.
Right.
But every one of your students should have the Pro version.
Right.
I mean, I don't even remember what I pay. It's like.
It's about $100, or it might have gone up to $125 or something.
Yeah,
but it's definitely worth it. Like I said, I don't have the Pro version on my phone. I have the regular IMDb on my phone, and but that too is worth it. Well, that's excellent. Any other questions or comments? Anything that interests you? What about launching? Oh, I know what I wanted to say. There are times when having a publicist could work against you. If you're not ready. In other words, you could get all sorts of publicity and all sorts of interest, and if you don't have something to follow up with, it's like if I wrote a book but I don't have any copies of my book and people wanted to buy it, and suddenly I've got people coming out going, "How do I get your book?" and I can't tell them, or I can't get the book to them, then all I've got is this publicity, but I'm not able to take advantage of it. So it's the same kind of thing if you get an article about what a great screenwriter you are, and you don't have any other additional screenwriting, material to give to people when they seek you out. And I'm not saying that's the fault of the publicist. I'm saying it's the responsibility of the object of the publicist's, the subject.
Yeah, my job as a publicist with whatever project I'm working on, my project, particularly for the filmmakers, it's about getting, any publicity that we get on film A is truly about building up your esteem in the media and the industry for film B. Because that's what it's all about. And to help you get financing for film B. Because all the publicity about a current film, unless we're just driving ticket sales for box office, everything else is about the next project. So you should always have a lineup of things in work, even if they're just concepts and they're just script outlines. It doesn't really matter. But if you get asked what else you got on your plate, the answer should never be, I'm not sure yet.
Good answer. Right. You should have something. Awesome. Now we have about 15 minutes left or so. So, any other questions or comments? Now would be.
I'll ask a little something. I mean, you guys are from Wisconsin, and you think you're not central to the film industry, which you're not LA. But I have to tell you, one of our big announcements was that we're working with 3 Point Capital, and they're a financier, and they finance. Look them up on IMDb. 3 Point Capital. They finance major films, and so our producer just made a deal with them to open up offices and start doing films in Ohio and Kentucky. Now, it's not Wisconsin, but that could happen tomorrow. And then you have this big film company coming in, and we're going to be filming 8 to 15 projects a year, like serious projects in development and in production over the next 5 years in those two, more obscure states. So it can, big film companies could come to Wisconsin just as easy, especially if your state has good tax credits and encourages filmmaking. You could have a a TV series based there. I mean, there's still opportunity, even if you're not quite in Los Angeles or New York.
Absolutely. Very true. Very true. And I'm going to let you lobby for us. and go, hey, have you ever heard of Wisconsin? And they'll go, yeah, Minnesota, that's great. Nobody ever remembers Wisconsin. I've never, ever encountered somebody when they go, where are you living now? I go, Wisconsin. They go, oh, yeah, Michigan. But they remember the Packers, huh? Say that again? Milwaukee.
I said, what city are you? Oh, Milwaukee.
So Laverne and Shirley didn't come to mind? Happy Days didn't pop in there? You didn't go Shamil, Shamazel?
I actually grew up with the Waltons, who helped do or produce those shows. I grew up with their kids.
Really? Oh, cool.
Yeah.
How very cool. Yeah, no, Milwaukee is the largest city in the state of Wisconsin. It's in southeastern Wisconsin, and it's actually, I will say this, I've never been very enamored with it until recently, and it's really starting to grow up, and they're doing a lot of development, and they're changing the freeway systems and building buildings. So if we could get our tax incentives back, and if we could become a nice, progressive, positive state again, I would be thrilled, because at one time we were poised to do a lot of film business, and that got kicked to the curb. But like a phoenix, it can happen again. It just takes dedicated people to keep working at it and keep having faith and keep trying to make it so. And we can do it. Good Wife was going to shoot here, and the state told them to go away. Go away. We don't want you.
That's sad.
It is sad, given how long and how successful The Good Wife has been.
Now, forgive me, geography is not my category, but how far away are you from Cincinnati?
8 hours.
8 hours?
8 hours.
Yeah, I would have said 6 or 8 hours. We're 90 minutes from Chicago.
Oh, yes. Okay. Oh, okay. All right. Just so I have a general idea where you are.
Yeah, we're directly north of Chicago, on the lake.
Okay. When we move forward with our film, our first production that we're doing in Ohio is with Mickey Rourke, a film called Tiger, and then our next film will be a film with Joe Manganiello, and I think we're going to start that around February, March. So I'll keep you guys posted, and find out where our locations are, and I'll tell Rex, and you guys want to make a drive and come visit a set, be my guest.
Very cool, very cool. That's awesome. That truly is awesome. it's great when there's work in the area, if not the state, in the region. You know, it's truly exciting. We have a couple of projects starting here. They're lower budget, but a couple of them that are shooting in northern Wisconsin coming up, and one I'm having a meeting with about today. So we'll see what goes on here. But things are starting to happen more and more frequently in Wisconsin, so that is good news. And more power to you. That's exciting. Are you planning on traveling to Cincinnati at all?
Good. I will be going on set. We do what's called the EPK, the electronic press kits.
Sure.
So we come out to the set and do the behind the scenes interviews with the stars of the film, the directors, you know, whoever else is important. And if it's a period piece or something, we might also interview the costumer, the art director. So we'll do that when possible. On the upcoming projects, it just each different project kind of dictates when and how and so forth. I love coming to the set and being part of the whole process of the filmmaking, and I love getting those behind the scenes images. And interviews are so important to help market the film down the line, because you can never go back and have that moment on the set. So I highly recommend everybody always do that with their projects, and I certainly hope so, because I love also, it starts building the relationship with the actors, because I'm going to be dealing with the actors for all their film premieres. I'm going to be dealing with them perhaps for film festivals and so forth. So it's important for me to start building relationships with them, start building relationships with the reps, start getting to know the project. It really helps me a lot do my job better.
Something else that you said that's very important, and that is especially when you make your films, especially for festival runs and or if you're looking to get distribution and you have to deliver things, always have a separate on-set photographer or EPK crew.
Oh, crucial. You need both, not or.
Right.
Both. You need
Right.
and. That is absolutely crucial. You need stills. A good still from a film will make or break your ability to get in an article. If you send a compelling still, they will absolutely look at it more so than if you don't have one. And there's tricks to getting good stills. And I literally, when companies hire me, and if I can't be out there on set and actually sit with the still photographer and teach them how to take good shots, I mean, not teach them, they're obviously photographers or professionals, but show them what I need for marketing and PR down the road, I can talk to them on the phone and tell them all the tricks, and this is how you get the shot, and this is the kind of shot I'm looking for, because there's certain shots that I know are always going to sell, pitch, be available to the media that they're going to want. I mean, we've been able to get behind the scenes stuff in Entertainment Weekly. We've been able to get pieces in People. We've been able to get pieces on The Wrap. All kinds of entertainment news publications prior, just from filming. And so we've already mentioned that's your film being mentioned in the media one more time. They do, People has what's called Star Treks, and they have all the scenes of different actors in scenes in whatever TV show or movie that they're filming. And getting placement in that is really helpful to sell your film down the road, or TV show, whatever you're doing.
Awesome. Any other final questions before we have about 10 minutes?
I have one question.
Yes.
So, if I'm choosing a publicist, a PR, how do I
Good question.
choose one? For example, why would I choose your PR? For
Okay.
example.
Well,
Yeah, that's a good question. What criterion?
great question. Yeah, because there's a lot of us, and we're all different. So do some research, ask for recommendations. Go check out their IMDb pages, check out their social media. How involved are they in content? Are they promoting content for their clients? And then you kind of decide, are you somebody who wants to be hands-on with your publicist and you're having conversations with her every few days about if you've got an ongoing project and you're checking in and talking and so forth, and you're going to really need somebody more like me who's more of a consultant that can work with you and be by your side the whole process, and so to speak, hold your hand and guide you through it. If you just want like some splash and pizzazz and say, hey, I'm with William Morris or I'm with BWR, one of the larger PR firms, you can have that. It'll cost you about 10 times as much, and you'll get about 10% of the actual work done, because they don't care about small filmmakers and smaller projects. They just want as much money coming in the door as possible. And they, it's all cookie cutter to them. There's not a lot of personal service. You're not going to get all those phone calls. They're not going to have the time of day for you. But some people really want the bigger agencies because they want to be able to put that on their their press sheets. Such and such is representing me. And there is a teeny bit of advantage there, but I would say you as an independent filmmaker, you should find a smaller independent PR firm to work with you, because it's, again, a relationship. And it's hard to have a relationship with a big agency when you're a small fry.
True.
And even when you're a big fry, I have some big fries who much prefer working with me than working with the bigger agencies, because they just don't deliver the same way. But then the agencies can do things I can't. They have a lot more power than I do, but I have a lot more. I have great relationships, so.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Other questions? Got room for
I can add one tiny thing to that, if I may.
Yes.
If a publicist is promising you, I'm going to get you in LA Times, I'm going to get you in Variety, I'm going to get you all these things, and it's a promise, like I'm going to do these things for you, then you know they're lying, because they can never promise or guarantee anything. Like I have 2 clients that literally had 2 front page stories in Variety over the last 2 weeks, and I couldn't have promised them that I would have gotten them front page stories in Variety, and I did it. But I couldn't have promised or guaranteed it, because you never know what the industry's going to be, or what story is going to be important or popular one day, or what reporter is going to be out sick, or somebody doesn't care about that particular storyline or whatever. So I can never promise a guarantee. So anybody who's telling you, we've got this, they don't.
That's good, and it's probably a good thing to add, although we're talking different services here. One is, you're paying a publicist and you're working with them on a relationship basis for a period of time. But like casting or agents, because this goes out on the internet, not just to this class, never pay to be put on an internet site. There are some, like Actors Access or LA Casting, or some of those that are legitimate sites where you pay to get up, or you pay to upload video, or you pay to get your reel there, or pictures, stuff like that. But in general, you never pay to get cast in a movie. You never pay a casting director to cast you. Somebody will say, well, I'll put you in my movies if you give me, $200 or whatever. It just doesn't work that way. And agents take money when they get you work, not before they get you work. So never pay an agent or anyone up front in that regard.
No, but publicists do get paid up front.
Publicists get paid up front. If it's a different business, it's a different term. But yes, they do.
Yeah,
And
we get paid in full up front. That's standard.
Yeah.
I love that about my business, I have to say.
Indeed. So with just a few minutes remaining, by the way, I neglected to tell you, I will call you back. Class will end in about a half an hour from now, or not quite, and I will get in my car to drive where I'm going, and I will give you a call just to debrief with you if you've got a moment at that point. But this has been fabulous. Any other comments or questions before we let Nadine go? Oh, everything's answered. You know everything you need to know to have to have your movie play a festival. What I think we mentioned that, but what can they do in lieu of a publicist or working with a publicist right now? Let's say there's a small festival. We talked about Sundance and stuff like that, but what can they do to try and get the people into the room to see their film?
You mean after you've been accepted into a
Yes.
festival? Okay. Well, then the festivals are generally about the neighborhood, the city, the area in which the festival is. So you need to find out, like look for the local publications who writes about that festival, because most festivals have been going on for years. So look at last year's, who covered that festival, who attended that festival, who were the sponsors of that festival. Did they have networking, cocktail parties, opening night galas? Did they have filmmaker lounges? Did they have panels? You know, go to anything and everything that they have. Absolutely, just be a presence and learn what they're doing at the festival and get 1 billion postcards and posters out to the neighborhoods around the movie theater that the screening is, so that humans can go and sit in those seats and watch your movie. Because depending upon how good the festival promotion and marketing department is, they may or may not really care if there's people in seats. They only care about, you know, overall prestige of the festival. So it's your job as that filmmaker to help get people into those seats.
Well, and the more important the festival, like if it were Sundance, then you're talking a buyer's market where you actually will have people there who are interested in picking up films. And if nobody attends your screening, nobody's going to buy your movie. So you want to fill those seats, especially with the people with the acquisition.
A self-promotion. When we did Bottle Shock, a film that we did with Chris Pine and Alan Rickman and Bill Pullman at Sundance, we literally, we got there and it was like midnight, and the director and I and 2 of the PAs, we were running around town putting up posters on like every, you know, lamp post, whatever we could find, literally until like 3 in the morning. So that people, like that first day when they're walking around town, they just see Bottle Shock, Bottle Shock, Bottle Shock everywhere. You got to plant that seed and be consistent again with that message. Let them see it everywhere. Let everybody be talking about it. Promote it. Get your friends involved. Whatever it takes.
Yeah, I mean, and that's good too, because you never know. Well, you'll find out, but you never know what slot you're going to get in a festival. Whether you're going to get an early hour slot or a late AM, PM, AM hour slot. Whether you're going to be in the 8 p.m. main running slot. Probably not, especially in a prestigious festival. And also, one thing that's interesting. I've had friends who've talked about this. We didn't talk about this now, but not only your brand, I think, but this is an important consideration for filmmakers, and that is, what is your film? If you can't describe your film genre, if you can't say it is this, a festival programmer is going to have an exceedingly difficult time deciding whether or not they want where they would program it. And if it's too much work in their head to think about where they're going to program it, they're probably not going to program it, because they're going to pick the things that they know. Here's the family film, here's the sci-fi film, here's the romance film, here's the dark, gritty, violent film that we can put at late hour that's got the nudity and the bad language. So they have different slots for different things. So when you're crafting your feature and publicizing your feature, you want to make sure that it's immediately identifiable too. If it's one of those, it's a dark comedy, horror, western, sci-fi, love story, it gets harder to program.
Yeah, I agree. Plus, be consistent with your message whenever you're talking about your film. Like, you should have a tagline for your film that should be like a sentence or two, and be consistent to always repeat the same tagline all the time. It's like your walking, talking commercial for your film, whatever your tagline is, and there's some brilliant taglines out there. Make sure you have a good one, and be consistent every time you talk about it. And never say my film. Always say Bottle Shock or whatever the name of your film is. Always mention the name of your film, because again, getting it in people's ears, the name of your film, your tagline, your genre, your filmmaker, our star, whatever it is that you can promote. Always say those words out of your mouth every single time. You could be at the laundromat talking about your film and tell somebody next to you about it. You never know. That person can go and buy 20 seats for their friends at the theater. You never know. So always be consistent.
I think right there, if nothing else, I mean, if nothing else stood from the discussion that we have, because everything that you've said I so appreciate, and I think it's stellar. It's stuff that everybody has to know. But the fact that when you're talking about your project, to insert the name of your project all the time, and the names of your stars, that makes perfect sense. Because in other words, if somebody says, well, how long have you worked on your film? And you say, well, we worked on it for 4 years, and then if you say we worked on the name of the film, and that, you know, each time you would have said that, you're helping those people remember. I love that. That's the perfect.
So simple.
Yep, just constantly say the title of your book or the title of your film or the stars of your film's names, and not my film and my project and my. Wow. Well, Nadine, you have been marvelous as always. I should tell listeners we've done other shows together on Rex Sikes Movie Beat, and you've got great stuff that you want to go and listen to there as well as this. And hopefully we don't have any, or if we did have any sound issues, that they were minimum. But I really want to thank you for spending this morning with us and sharing your expertise and being here today.
Anytime. It's an honor and privilege to be asked, honestly. I love you, Rex, and anytime you need me for anything, don't hesitate to call. I love helping young filmmakers. That's my job. I love working with filmmakers one-on-one, so this is a great opportunity for me.
Well, that's cool, because we're going to either see you back in L.A., because I love Wilshire Boulevard, and but we'll see you either back in L.A. or in Cincinnati, or we'll get you into Wisconsin sometime on a project.
Okay.
But that would be awesome, and sometime soon.
Good luck, everybody.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, awesome. Have a great one. I'll call you in a little while, and I look forward to it. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Oh,
Bye.
thank you. All right. Let's see here.